Johnny, what's up, man? Great to see you.
Good to see you too, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Usually the extent of our conversations are done in a chat through the workout app that you use for my programming. So we don't often get a chance to at least see each other face to face, even though it's not in person.
Yeah, I get the opportunity to berate you, face to face, but only through message. So this is different.
I mean, honestly though, I feel like the past month I've been doing okay enough that there's not much berating that would need to happen. Like I've been pretty consistent with everything, all my workouts, and we're trying to get it dialed back in.
Yeah, you've been on fire, man. You've been on fire. I mean, you came to me, you're like, give me more, and I was really excited about that.
Yeah, like sometimes I wonder, we'll probably get into this here pretty quick. The other day was last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday. I was feeling beat down. I was just feeling exhausted.
Mm.
And I was wondering to myself, at what point is it too much? Is it too little? And I thought, it's probably never too much. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might take your body a while to figure it out, but I just don't see too many people having to have a serious issue or concern with overtraining. It just doesn't seem like something that the body is not capable of adapting to.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too early, but I think overtraining is a little overdone, if you will. I think we speak a little bit too much about it. My rule is what I use with all my clients is do me a favor, go out there today and do the best that you can, and then see how you feel tomorrow. But let's not skip today, right? Let's not use the overtraining excuse today. Let's get after it, and then let's see how you do tomorrow. And then if you feel like crap tomorrow, then maybe take the day off.
And I wouldn't even say take the day off, just do something different. Like
Yeah,
instead
dial it
of,
back, auto regulate.
right, go to, what did you say, auto regulate?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So if you're feeling like, I really can't get in there and hit my lifts today, maybe I'm gonna go out there and go for a ruck, or do something with your kids, play ball with them, go for a hike, insert whatever recreational activity you want to do here, and just auto regulate. You have to be careful with that too, right? That's why it's good to look at it as objectively as you can, and go back to your plan and try to stay to it as best you can. But if you're feeling down and if you need to, like I said, auto regulate, it's okay to do that every once in a while.
What do you mean? You said you have to be careful with doing that. What is there a risk to doing that, or is it just taking it too easy because you're quote unquote auto regulating and you're just using it as an excuse not to go lift or do something you should be doing?
Yeah, the latter for sure.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty interesting. Well, and one of the things that you said too that I think is a common problem is just do the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
if people are like me, I mean, that is a great liar. I did the best that I can. Did you though? Like, did you really do the best that you could? I don't know if anybody could ever in the history of mankind answer that question in the affirmative.
Yeah. Well put.
How do you make sure that you are going hard, that you are doing as much as you can be doing or should be doing, or at least working to get there? How do you know that?
I don't know if you really do know that ever until you really put in the reps, so to speak, over time. It's kind of like a self discovery. You know, you had Ed Milet on, he's awesome. And I think that conceptually, the idea of one more, can I do one more rep? Can I get out there and do one more set? You don't really know what your limits are to really push them, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that takes time. And I think that the more advanced you are if we're talking specifically about training, you get to know what your limits are. And I'm still discovering that daily, and I've been training for a while. I still discover that every day. Can I push a little bit harder than I did yesterday?
Well, it seems like with regards to training that you have to do that. Otherwise, you're not going to improve. If for example, I can do I don't know, 225-pound bench press for 3 reps,
Mm-hmm.
but I never try to get the fourth, I'll never get the fourth. Or if I never, put 245 on the bar, then I'll always stay at 225. Like you have to go to that point of which you've never gone before, even with the training that you program for me. And we got to back up here in a minute. The training that you
Mm,
program for me, this morning, I think I had to do something for 14 or 16 reps. I think it was maybe incline bench press, dumbbell bench
yep.
press. And I got to 12. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. I was in the third or fourth set. I'm like, I can't do 16 or 14 of these or whatever it was. And then immediately I was like, no, you can, you just need to take a 10-second break. Like do 12 and then take 10 seconds. Don't put the things down. Cause if I put them down, they're not coming back up.
Yeah.
So don't put them down. Just hold them there for a second and finish your 3 or 4. But too often guys are like, oh, that's good enough. I guess that's my best. I can only do 12. No, you can
Yeah.
do
And
14.
that's
You
not
just got to
actually good
figure out a
enough.
way to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's not good enough. That's not the best that they could. And people need to be more honest with themselves. They need to be more brutally honest with themselves. And that's why, talking about training and using the app, using specific metrics and measurables is something that I really push. And depending on everyone, wherever you're getting started, everyone's different. But I really, really push that because the best way to improve is to progressively overload and to track. And like you said, put a little bit more weight on the bar, fight for one more rep, make those incremental gains over time. That's going to be the best way to improve over time.
Your app is the thing that I like about your app is it actually shows, what you did last week. And
Mm,
then it'll show you if there's a personal best that you've done for that day. And
yeah.
so my goal, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you'd like to see something different, but my goal every time I go in is on maybe not every, but the majority of movements, I want to have a personal best. So that's either more reps than I did the previous week or more
Mm-hmm.
weight than I did the previous week. And so I want to have 7, 8, 9 personal bests every time. And I know there's a lot of diminishing returns. I realize that, in 6 or 8 or 12 months, those are going to be less frequent. But at what level of, you called it progressive overload, I think.
Yep.
And so at what level should you be doing that? Like, should that be done every single time you train? Should you try to keep it at the same weight for 3 weeks, for example? Like, how do you progressively overload effectively?
Yeah. So it depends on client to client. And for going for traditional, like linear periodization, like, so how I have your program written, I think I have you doing like 6 weeks, or maybe it's 8 weeks right now. I don't remember exactly, but every week for you, at least using your specific example, you should be increasing volume over time, meaning weights times reps times sets. So you should, as you pointed out, getting a personal best per movement, ideally, every workout, whether it be a little bit more weight moved, one more rep, and depending upon your program, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes like these cycles will last shorter or longer. But the way I do it mostly is within a particular phase, you should be progressing every single week. And then depending upon how your body's doing, we're gonna switch it up, whether you need to like deload, right? Because your body is, maybe a little sore, and maybe we're kind of not experiencing those incremental gains we were before. Now it's time to increase, or rather introduce some variety, whether it be exercise selection, difference in rep schemes, or something like that. So generally somewhere between, it's a wide range, but 4 to 8 weeks for people, they should be seeing pretty significant increases in strength and volume, and then we kind of switch it up.
And so you're saying that when you start to hit those plateaus, that's a good metric or indicator that maybe it's time to switch up the routine a bit.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm there yet, obviously, because everything continues to improve and increase. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the different metrics that you could track with improvement, so you can track, like you said, you can track reps, weight, and or sets. So for somebody, let's ask. I'll ask it this way:
Yeah.
based on what people are trying to do, what their goals are. Maybe it's lose weight. For me, losing weight is not so much of a concern as putting on muscle. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is my objective. I want to put on weight. I want to put on muscle mass. I think losing weight is going to be a byproduct of that and eating right. So that's not my number one priority. So for that, should I be focusing more heavily on increasing weight or increasing reps, increasing sets? What would be best if that's my goal? And then if somebody has a different goal, like burning fat, what
Mhm.
metric would be more applicable for somebody like that?
Yeah, really, really good question. And to answer it simply and most concisely, if we're talking about lean muscle building, so hypertrophy, for example, it seems to be when they've done all these meta-analyses on all these different rep schemes, the major factor, the number one contributor, assuming that intensity is similar, is total volume of load moved across that exercise. So very simply, 200 pounds on the bench press, for example, 4 sets, 10 reps, right? So that's 40 reps times 200. What is that going to be? 8,000 pounds of volume moved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at that, and my app will calculate this for you. So if you ever see that you've got a new personal best of volume, what that means is that 8,000 pounds is now 8,001 or more, essentially. So over the course of that 6 to 8 week period, if you're doing a 6 to 8 week program, that 8,000 pounds in week one is maybe 10,000, 12,000 or more. So it's really accounting for total volume of load moved, assuming, right, that the intensity is the same. They've looked at, what's better, heavy weight, low reps, because powerlifters are big, right? They don't do a lot of reps, but the load's so heavy. They've also seen that hypertrophy is similar in reps of even up to 30 reps. As long as the intensity is the same, you have to take muscles to near failure in order to have that hypertrophic effect. And the really big thing driving all of this is the volume of load, the total volume, weight times reps times sets.
So, okay, so if I'm as a layperson, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's not so much the total load on bar relative
Mm-hmm.
to the reps or vice versa. It's just the most efficient way to get as much volume in a certain time frame. Is there like a period of time where, hey, if you hit that $8,000 or 8,000 pounds, not dollars, you're thinking in pounds, I think in dollars. Like these are the differences between. So okay, so I want to hit 8,000 pounds, and I got to do that in let's just say 12 minutes. I don't know, whatever it is, right? I
Mm-hmm.
got to hit 8,000 pounds in 12 minutes. I've often wondered because there's been a couple of times where I've messaged you. I'm like, hey, bro, I got a meeting. I only got through half of my workout, and I'll come back and finish it. And I have been, to my credit, I have been going back in the
Yeah.
afternoon, and I have finished because a lot of times I could not say that about myself. It seems like breaking it up like that would not give me the same benefit as if I were to do it all in a certain period of time.
Yeah. So now we're kind of getting a little bit above and beyond my education, but from the studies and the different things that I've looked at, as long as the work gets done within the week, that volume of work done, that's the biggest driving factor. Now, if you look
In a
at
week,
within the week, yeah,
see, but where that doesn't add up to me is the adage of it's better to work out for an hour 5 days a week than 5 hours one day a week. But if it's in a week time
yeah,
frame, does it really matter?
yeah. I don't know of any studies where they've done it all in one day, but they look at like, 2 days a week versus 3 days a week versus 5 days a week. I've seen studies comparing that, and the gains are the same whether it's only 2 days a week versus 5 days a week, as long as they control for volume.
Really?
I haven't seen one day. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
but
dude, that sounds like a
what I
challenge right there.
what I could tell you is that I'm actually experimenting with this myself. I'm doing so now we're talking about like exercise frequency, right? So I'm doing a high frequency full body program right now, and I'm kind of testing it for myself. If I do just 2 sets of bench 4 days a week, how is that going to yield results as compared to doing 4 sets of bench 2 days a week, right? So I'm in the middle of doing that myself. It's the first time I've done it spread out like that, and so we'll see. Just because I've been intrigued by exactly what we're talking about. Like if we truly do separate volume across 4 days as opposed to just like, one chest day or, 2 chest days or one leg day, what is that response going to be like? The studies say that it should be the same.
But how long of a time frame do you give yourself? Because admittedly, I've been looking at myself in the mirror and I've been going, I think, pretty hard for like 4 weeks, maybe five, somewhere right in
Yeah,
there.
about 4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed some minor changes where it's like, okay, I look a little, I've got rid of some of the extra fat here. Muscles are looking a little bit more defined. Back's looking better, losing some weight around the midsection. I've often wondered about guys like yourself who are immersed in the industry, like how long you need to give yourself to do something to measure whether or not it's effective. Because a lot of the times, a guy like myself or somebody trying to get their fitness dialed in, they're just not going to give themselves long enough to recognize the differences and the changes in themselves.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're going into, the new year, right? And everybody's going to orient themselves towards their goals, and they're wondering how long is this going to take before I could reap some benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately now we're so programmed to want results right away. We've always been like that, but just nowadays with modern technology, we're really wanting things now.
Yeah.
Um, it starts with where you're at and what your history is. So for example, if somebody comes in to see me and if they've never exercised before and they're overweight, I can have really significant results with them in the first month pretty easily, like guaranteed. If somebody comes in, like yourself, you've got a lot of exercise background, multiple sport athlete, and you're already getting after it pretty well, it's going to take longer for me to get results from you unless I'm doing
Sure.
something completely different that your body's never done before. So roundabout way to answer you, but it depends on where somebody starts. For the average guy that's already at the gym a few days a week and he's already putting in the work, you've got to stay in a program for at least 2 months to see if you're getting the results. Too often people try, this one online program they found for a week. Oh, like it's not working, or 2 weeks, or a month. Even a month's not long enough. I would give it at least 2 months.
Yeah, that I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for a lot of guys. Because let's be honest, I mean, some of the things that you're talking about are above my pay grade. You're talking about hypertrophy, and I don't know what that is. We should get into that in a minute here. And I'm like, whatever. All I know is you do that, and then you'll get stronger. I'm like, okay, that's always been good enough for me in this realm, right? But people just won't give themselves long enough to realize the results, and that goes back to what we were saying about working out one day a week or 3 days. You'll hear a lot of fitness guys say work out 3 days a week. That's like ideal. That's maximum efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that and I understand that. But there's two things that come to mind. Number one is you're to go to the extreme like we were talking about. And I actually want to do this. I'm actually going to do this. I don't know when, but I'm going to do this in the near future. I'm going to do 1 week's programming in one day because I just want to do it. I know I can do it, but the problem with it is that my muscles will just become fatigued and I won't be able to get the same volume on my later lifts. That's
Mm-hmm.
clearly the problem with that line of thinking. But there's another problem, and I think this is what people often overlook is we tend to believe that, hey, if I go work out, I'm going to look better, I'm going to feel better, I'm going to look stronger, I'm going to look better naked, all good stuff. But there's also mental stuff going on that if you're just doing it one day a week, you're missing out on 6 days a week of getting up early before the sun or as the sun rises, going
Mm-hmm.
in, doing a workout, starting your day off on the right foot, feeling better, the endorphins that have proven to be been released. You're just missing out on that because you're worried about maximum efficiency in muscle building, which
Yeah.
makes sense if you're competing or maybe you're doing a bodybuilding competition like I know you've done in the past, but for everyday life, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Is there a specific part you wanted me to address on that?
No, I'm just curious, just what you think about that.
Yeah. So I think that there's a huge amount of power in habits, right? I think that organizing your day around certain habits um, is huge. And you mentioned, if I could speak specifically to the mental aspect of it, I did a talk at Main Event, with you, and probably the most impactful thing that exercise has had in my life, obviously physically, but mentally, the amount of reward I get from going in the gym and working out hard and building those habits is is in a way, like, I can't even quantify how valuable it is. Not to mention the amount of confidence that I get from putting in the work, right? You got better mental health, better confidence, you're building habits. I mean, those things are way more valuable than just the physical. Like, those intangibles are really, really powerful. So I think that if we're talking about efficiency and habits, I think that if you want to work out every day and move every day, which I recommend, you go out and do some movement every day, that you shouldn't limit yourself to just getting that incredible amount of neurotransmitter dopamine release from working out just 2 days a week. I think that if you could organize your day to, get up, get outside, get some sun exposure, make working out as part of your daily routine, in whatever capacity, which is appropriate, is going to be the best way for long-term success. And this is where programming and smart programming is essential, because you shouldn't go and lift weights 7 days a week, right? So exercise doesn't have to be lifting super heavy every single day. As much as I want to do that sometimes, I know that my body's not going to repair and keep up 7 days a week. But I do something every day just because I feel really good doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said programming and smart programming, when you say smart programming, you're talking about programming in the correct way, right? Not a specific type of programming, or are you?
Oh, yes. No, intelligent programming. Yeah. So programming the right way. So you're checking off all of your boxes. You're getting in your resistance training. You're getting in a little bit of cardiovascular training. Obviously, you and I do jujitsu, so you're getting that training in as well. So programming yourself in a way that you could do all of those things.
Yeah.
And show up the next day and keep doing it.
Well, that's a good point. And also based on what you want to accomplish, like, jujitsu is a big part of my life, and also my fitness regimen. So am I going to go be a power lifter? No, I'm not interested in that. My oldest son is, like, he's all about that. That's all he wants to do. I'm not going to do that because that isn't, well, it's not interest. It's boring to me, frankly. Like, he's like, it's so awesome. And I'm like, it sounds so boring. You do 3 lifts a week and some accessory work. Oh, I don't know how he does it, but that is one of the things that has fascinated me. And I want to speak on this a little bit, or have you speak on this, is I've never enjoyed lifting weights. Never. Like, I'm fairly athletic. I'm fairly fit, depending on, what season of my life you ask me. But I've always been pretty active, but never, ever have I enjoyed lifting weights. But for some reason, in the past month and a half, like, I've really enjoyed getting up and going in and training. And you and I haven't had a lot of conversations about this part of it, but I'm wondering if you have experience with other clients who have grown to actually like resistance training where they haven't in the past, and what might make it more enjoyable for somebody who is resistant to it the way that I have been.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I'll ask you a question. Is there something that clicked in your brain, because like that first day, like that first week, 5 weeks ago, when you first started getting into it, like, when did you find a little bit more drive to go in and get it done in that first week or two? Because at some point in the beginning, you just have to make yourself do it.
Yeah, like, just force myself to do it.
You just have to do it, right? But at some point, it changes and you're looking forward to it, or you're experiencing a certain reward. So I'll ask you, when did you first experience a glimpse of that? Or what made you?
I don't know when, yeah, but what I would say, I just started to enjoy that a little bit of alone time. Like, I just throw my headsets on and listen to a podcast or listen to a book. So that has been nice. I don't really know, because even as I'm going through the workout, it's like, this sucks. Oh, 10, 11. Okay, I got to get to 15. Oh, and then I have to do that 4 times. Like that. My mentality is like, resist, like, fight so hard against that. But for some reason, I get up in the morning and I'm like, I'm ready to go in. I'm looking forward to going in. And maybe it's the feeling after of accomplishment that I like. Could be that.
Yeah.
that's an element of it. Or maybe that I have noticed some results,
Hmm.
and so that's what's driving me. Uh, Also that I'm just trying to keep up with my oldest son because he's turning into a beast of a human being. I told him he's got his national powerlifting he qualified for in March. And I
Congrats.
told
That's
him,
awesome.
yeah, it's so cool. I told him, let's do one rep maxes on our three big lifts. And he's like, yeah, okay. And he's like, but it has to be after nationals because he doesn't deviate from the program leading up
Yeah.
to an event. And I said, that's fine. We can do it whenever you want. And he's like, we'll just use my totals from nationals. I'm like, no, 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 no. We're going to compete, you versus me. You have to do it again. He's like, okay. So
Mano a
maybe
mano
that's,
in the gym.
yeah, that's right. So maybe that's a motivation. I don't know. I wish I could tell you, because if I could tell you, then I feel like I could duplicate it. But something about it has
Yeah.
clicked for me, and I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I think at some point something clicks for people. And I think those things, they're similar, but there's some sort of feedback loop between the feeling that you get in the gym while you're doing the work, and then just a little bit of the result that you get, that you see, just to kind of keep you going, that gets you to buy in, right? So there's this feedback loop between you getting the work in, you feeling that sense of accomplishment at the end of your workout, and actually doing the work too, and then you get just a little bit of the result. And you also mentioned that at the end of the workout, sometimes you'll get an acknowledgement of a personal best, and I think that really drives people too, because you see that, you're like, oh, like I'm getting more done today than I did last time, and this is awesome. So for me, when I see with clients is I try to get them. I see what kind of motivates them. Is it that they're moving a little more weight on the bar? They're feeling empowered. They're like, oh, like I did this my body weight. Like this is amazing. And these are general population people. These are like, moms with kids. I train, grandparents. My oldest client is 85 years old, and he loves walking around and showing his friends who some of them aren't walking that he's
Sure.
deadlifting 200 pounds, right? So
Dang.
it's figuring out, you know, what's driving people, right? What's like their purpose, whether it's connecting with their kid, right? For you, like connecting with your son. So I think in the gym, it's figuring out with people what's kind of what's going to get them to buy in. A lot of people, it's just the results, right? But what gets them to do the work is that they're getting a little bit better every day, that they walked up the stairs and they weren't tired. They picked up the groceries. It's easy. They picked up their child and they seem light. Life is just better, and they could connect that.
Yeah, it's as you were saying that, I was thinking about the screen that pops up and says, you've got 6 new personal bests or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, I think to myself, what a silly thing to be motivated by, because it's just computer programming and it's a little cartoon that comes up and gives you a cartoon high five. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, that's dumb. I shouldn't be motivated by that. But then also I'm like, well, but why shouldn't I? Like
Yeah, why not?
if that's what feels good and gets you back going again to say, okay, well, I got, this weight this time, maybe I can do more next time. I think all too often some of these quote unquote silly things, or we hear a lot about how motivation is bull crap. I'm like, why? Like, if it works to drive you to doing something you want to be doing and should be doing, shouldn't we use all the tools at our disposal?
Absolutely. Swing that tool, use that tool, man. If you're getting results, like go for it. If you like that little cartoon high five, and if you're like, man, I gotta get 16, I gotta get that 16 reps, so I get my high five later, like
That's
shoot.
right, man.
If that's making you a better man, a better human, like freaking go for it. Like harness that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back to hypertrophy. You were talking about that, and I see that it's like pull hypertrophy, push hypertrophy, full body
Mhm.
hyper, and I don't actually know what that is. So, can you explain what that term means and why it's valuable?
Yeah. That's for you to think that I know what I'm talking about, so I'm using big words.
Right, that's what I thought. I'm like, I don't know. It sounds like he knows what he's doing. He's using scientific words, so maybe I should listen to him.
Hypertrophy simply means muscle building, basically. So,
Okay.
when somewhere along the lines, like I think that bodybuilders were perceived as like dumb or something, and so the fitness industry had to call bodybuilding training hypertrophy training, because it's really just
Hmm.
bodybuilding. It's just muscle
Is that
building.
where it derived from? From the bodybuilding trade or world, I guess
I
you'd
don't know
say?
where hypertrophy, the name, came from, but hypertrophy in the scientific realm literally means to build muscle mass.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
like for your programming, those workouts are geared towards a rep range, which would encourage more hypertrophy muscle building as opposed to if we were doing lower reps, the focus would be more strength, for example. So when I program people, they're generally training for either strength or power or hypertrophy or endurance. There's a couple other things, but those little notes dictate what the focus of that workout is.
are you saying that the way that you worded that made it sound like strength muscle building is different than strength building?
Yes and no. Yeah.
So
So
explain that, because when I think about putting on muscle mass, I just assume, I mean, obviously you're going to get stronger, but I
mhm.
just assume they're one and the same, but it sounds like they're not. It sounds like they're different.
Yeah, so strength and muscle mass are correlated, and you could train for strength specifically. So if guys are listening, if they're wondering, what they want to accomplish, first and foremost, figure out, what's the objective, what's the goal, because for you want to increase lean mass, right? You want to engage in muscle hypertrophy, right? So that's why the program I've written for you is oriented around that.
Why do you
You
say
can
lean?
program
Why do people say lean, like lean mass, like as opposed to what?
as opposed to absolute mass. So lean mass meaning we're going to increase muscle tissue, where increasing mass means like I could just tell you eat a bunch of food and you're going to get fat, right?
Yeah, but nobody wants to do that, right? I guess
Yeah,
the only arena that I think that's acceptable is powerlifters, where they're like,
yeah,
just get huge in any way possible.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So whenever you're training to add mass, it's all just lean mass. Like you
I
can't
got you,
add
gotcha.
fat mass through training.
Right.
That's
That's why I was
just
like,
like
why would
overeating.
you why
Yeah.
would you want to do it? Isn't that what you want? So I'm just curious. Anyways, proceed.
Yeah, so I say lean mass is because like I'm kind of programmed to say that because you can't put on fat mass or bad mass through training. Like that's going to happen
You
from
you wouldn't
eating
want
like
to.
crap.
Wouldn't want
Yeah.
to anyways. Unless you're a powerlifter.
um,
All the powerlifters are going to be mad at me now. Unless you're a
yeah, yeah,
powerlifter, then you
yeah.
can
They're
just
like,
look.
oh, we're not just fat and lazy and
Is that what they did?
uh,
Is that the is
they're
that
like,
the
what's the guy's name from Sorinex? Oh man, I'm so sorry. Kim McDaniel.
Yeah,
um Man, he does all these funny
he's
impressions of
hilarious.
different like archetypes for
Yeah,
lifters, and he's hilarious. I
hilarious.
think I harnessed him when I did that.
You did, I could tell. That's what I thought. Or my son.
So
My son's like that too. And he like
yeah,
flexes in the mirror and he's like talks about his numbers. I'm like, get out of here.
yeah,
So, anyways,
he's
proceed.
talking to kilograms now because he's a
Yeah,
power
yeah,
lifter.
exactly. He's like, I lifted 80 today. I'm like, 80 pounds? That's it? He's like, that's like 200 pounds. So
Yeah. Yeah, so for programming, you can specifically train for certain things. You could specifically train for strength, like I mean like powerlifter strength is absolute strength, so amount of load moved, which is a little bit different than power. Power to be like how fast can I move this weight, which is a little bit more applicable to like sports like jujitsu.
sure.
Um, and then you have endurance training, like long distance training, and then muscle hypertrophy. So when you're looking at your program, like think about like what am I aiming at? What am I trying to accomplish with my programming? Look at your rep ranges. We talk about volume, right? Look at your volume, which is going to be the most important thing for hypertrophy when you're designing your program.
Where does cardio fit into the equation? Because there's a lot of conflicting information. I've even heard things like, oh, cardio reduces testosterone. And I don't know if there's
Really?
any validity to that. Yeah. And I'm not talking about your sprinting, for example, is I've heard
Mm-hmm.
that builds testosterone, that helps. But if you do long endurance type training, that reduces testosterone. It's like, I don't know. I'm just curious because I know some guys that are beasts that are endurance athletes. And I'm like, I wouldn't call that guy less of a man because he happens to be lean and maybe tall and a little lanky, maybe even gangly, but that's pretty impressive. That's still very athletic.
Yeah. So for cardio, so I think that it's important to note that just because it's not running doesn't mean it's not cardio. So for example, like when you're doing your workouts in the gym, you're still working your cardiovascular system.
Sure, of course.
So that's not an excuse to say that you should never go out for a run or for a jog or hop on
Dang
a
it.
bicycle. But
That's what I was hoping for, that I never had to go for a run.
yeah, and I want the bodybuilders to start, cheering up and down, and the powerlifters cheer up and down, but they're still working out their cardiovascular system. So I don't want
Of
guys to
course.
think that like just because they're lifting 4 days a week that they're not doing cardio, especially if they're doing it at a rapid pace, if they're doing it at a circuit style. So if we're talking about like different cardio zones, like low intensity cardio, like walking or rucking, like zone 1 and zone 2, and it's different for everybody. Different like percentages of their heart rate. That's going to be really great for overall cardiovascular health and fat loss, generally speaking. And then as you kind of get up into like the middle range and then the higher range, like you talk about sprinting, sprinting is going to be great for building VO2 max and stimulating, your central nervous system. And there is some correlation between sprinting and high intensity training and hormone optimization, like you mentioned. So I think everybody needs to do some sort of cardiovascular training. You get plenty of that in jujitsu. I think that for you, that's adequate. Depends on your goals. If it's for general health, I think that you do need to do some sort of low impact training, whether it be going out for a long walk. Martial arts is going to fill that. High intensity training, like sprinting, is good. Depends on the goal. If you're an athlete, it's going to be very athlete specific.
Right. It's always, and I don't mean to be offensive at all when I say this, because it actually applies to me too. It's interesting to me that you have a job. And
Right.
the reason I say that is because we all know what to do. Like, okay, maybe we get the rep scheme wrong, or maybe there's a more efficient way to do a squat, or like things like that. But everybody knows what to do. And yet, for whatever reason, we don't do it. And guys are going to be listening to this podcast and they're going to be all amped up and they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to work with Johnny, or I'm going to go work with a person in my area. I'm going to get a Planet Fitness pass, or whatever they're thinking to themselves right now. And they're going to go for like a week or two, if that. And then they're going to fall right back into their old patterns and old habits. And I think that's where your job actually, that's where you actually have a job. I would assume is more so like, let me keep you motivated. Let me keep you in the game. Let me keep you going. Then let me show you the specifics of a proper squat form. Although important, not the priority relative to just keeping people in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it depends on the population of people that you're looking at. So general population people, yeah, like you said, they know what they have to do. And my job is to basically hold them accountable to doing it. And what's been an interesting effect of modern technology is what I'm seeing now is a lot of people are inundated with so much information that they don't know what to do with it, because they're like, oh, you have to do this diet, this program, this thing, this, that, do this, do that. And they're like, there's just too much input. They don't even know what to do with it. So one of the things that I'm doing with my online consulting business is helping people just distill this down. Someone's got to tell them, like, with all this going on, this is what you want, this is what you have to do specifically, for them and their goal. But if you're looking at like athletes, I don't train a lot of athletes. Yeah, there's a lot of skills in programming and getting them to do the right things. But general population, like you said, they know what to do. They just need to have somebody hold them accountable and getting them to do it. And when they get bored, to give them something else, because man, hitting that pause button, it's hard to get back up and going if you're doing it on your own and you don't have somebody like a trainer or an accountability partner that's going to be like, all right, dude, like, we're done with that program. We got to go right into this next one. Like, we're doing this thing, because if you stop, it's hard to get started again.
Yeah, I know for myself, just because of, I've got followers and people that listen. I'm trying not to be pretentious as I say that, because it sounds stupid, but a lot of people are willing to offer unsolicited advice, and that's what it is. It's advice. Like, they are trying to be helpful. So I'm not downplaying that or diminishing that. But I'll read a book and I'll have, 1,700 people say, read this book, that it's better than that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll post a workout and they're like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done, 14 reps. You should have done 13 at 110% of what you did at 14.
Yeah.
It's like, at some point, maybe this is just a personality thing. I don't care. I really don't. I need to get like to 90% efficiency. And yeah, I realize I'm leaving 10% on the table, but I have other things to do. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
other things that I care about, and 90% in this arena is okay. Like I acknowledge that, and I'm comfortable with that, because I've realized that if I chase every little thing for every little point of efficiency, I just won't do anything, or I'll get discouraged on what I am doing, or throw in the towel and abandon ship for this, fancier ship over here that I'll get bored with in another 2 months.
Dude, and here's the thing, and sorry to interject. I don't want to cut you off, but the hard work is going to separate and put you at steps above all of that other crap, right? Because like, sure, we could squeeze more efficiency out of this, or maybe this exercise is a little bit more optimal or whatever, but like hard work is going to win all of the time, right? Like we all know guys who are in the gym that aren't doing necessarily the right thing, but they work hard enough that it compensates for their inefficiencies, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're gonna have somebody who's gonna say, "Yeah, but what about?" And yeah, I've seen the videos where people doing dumb things, which
Mm-hmm.
is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like Planet Fitness videos, since we were talking about that earlier. Planet Fitness videos where people are going in and like, I don't know, doing like resistance jumping jacks on the leg curl machine or something. It's like what or like over sexualized movements,
Yeah.
on the lat pull down machine. It's like, what are you training for? Like the a marathon, Olympic orgy or what? It's hilarious to me. So yes, we know, guys, like there's that extreme where people are doing things that are dumb. And
Mm-hmm.
look, I like CrossFit. I actually really enjoy. I go to CrossFit 1 to 2 days a week. My family, they're 4 to 5 days a week. We really like CrossFit, but some of the CrossFit culture is ridiculous. Like why? Well, you're just gonna get the one that kills me is a kettlebell snatch.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, why do that? And like, you're just gonna break your wrist, and people are like, well, because you're doing it wrong. There's no right way to do that movement, because it's not a thing that people do. Now, do you lift things overhead? Yes. But you don't grab things and snatch them up in the air and hit. Like, it's not a thing humans do. The stuff people come up with is crazy to me.
Dude, you don't snatch your luggage into the overhead compartment bin?
Yeah, I've never done that. I've pushed it, a push press, a push jerk, but strict press, but I've never snatched, that into the air. So
You're gonna have the
whatever.
kettlebell people really upset with you right now. I'm just warning you.
I don't care. Like I said earlier, if they're gonna be upset or what, and what they're gonna say is I'm doing it wrong. Right. I
Yeah,
realize, because it hurts. I realize I must be doing it wrong. So,
but
but
you're
again,
gonna do
there's
a
no
different
right.
movement that's gonna serve you well.
Well, I don't mind snatches.
Yeah,
I think that's fine. But
yeah.
why interject all this crazy shit into the mix just for variety? That's a good point.
Mm.
Is At what point does variety become a hindrance to your training schedule, would you say?
Variety in what way?
Well, I just think if you're not consistent enough, or you're not building a movement, like repetitive movement,
Mm-hmm.
just bouncing around from thing to thing, program to program, weight to weight is probably a hindrance at some point.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's why when we talked earlier about programming, that I think that guys really got to stay on the path on whatever they choose for at least 2 months, right? And it's good to have some variety and variation in exercise selection. Years ago, there was this whole like muscle confusion thing. I don't know where that came from. Like muscles don't have
Mm.
brains; they can't be confused. But there needs to be some exercise variation, but not so much that you can't quantify and realize the results that you're getting from a certain movement. So, for example, like let's just look at squat because it's the easy one. Like you could back squat, you could front squat, you could Zercher squat. Like, how do you know if your back squat is going up if every time you squat, you're doing a different variation of the squat? Like, I don't know, like you got to stick with it for at least a good amount of time to see if you're actually progressing and if that movement's serving you.
Where would you suggest that somebody get started on this path? Because again, I wanted to have you on because you've done a phenomenal job with my training. And I've come down, and I think you're in the room where we did this body scan. What's it called?
Yeah, the DEXA.
DEXA, which measures everything essentially.
Yeah, bone density, muscle mass, body fat, all that stuff.
So obviously that's important because if you want to improve, you have to know where you're at. Like you need to be able to track things. But if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, hey, New Year's is coming up, I want to create a new me, I want to get my body dialed in, like where does a person like that start? Does it just go to the gym, pull up a generic, lifting schedule online? Like what would you suggest for somebody like that?
If we're talking specifically training, I think that first and foremost is we talk a lot about is defining their goal, right? What's their vision? What do they want to get out of this exercise program? Number one. And then find a program or a coach or whatever that's aligned with that objective. Decide to stick to it, like we talked about before, and stick to it for at least 2 months, like we had said before. And the program that they decide to choose, it needs to be sustainable. We see a lot in the Iron Council, guys will, be all in and they're super fired up and they execute hard for a week. And the plan that they set out to do, the habits that they decided to attack, they're overreaching, right? It's too much for them to take on, and it's not something that's sustainable for them. So what I always tell people, it's like, look, if you're going from like 0 days in the gym, like don't select a program that has 5 days. You're going to set yourself up for failure. Don't undershoot either, right? Just be realistic. And I always try to push people towards working a little bit harder, right? But if it's really, and I'm talking like they have a crazy job, their kid's schedule, if they really can't get in the gym 5 days a week, they shouldn't. I'm going to push them to try, but let's just be realistic. I'd rather them execute 100% at 3 days a week lifting, and then being like, hey, on those other days, like here's a selection of things that you could choose from. I want you to move every day. So go and rock or whatever. In addition to your days, but I want you to execute those days 100%. So
the alternative to that, I will push back on that just a little bit, just because I know my personality, and I know there's a lot of guys that have, not everybody, but a lot of guys listening that have the same personality. You're probably actually much the same way. I don't dabble. Like I'm not going to dabble in things. And if I do, then I know I'm not committed. If it's like, just do it like whenever you can, that is not going to work for me. Cause I'll either do 0 or I'll do 100. Mm-hmm. Like those are the only 2 numbers I know. Like I'm not doing that at all, or I'm doing 100. So just do 100. Like that's
not everyone's like that. Speaking generally, that was just like my general answer. But if I have someone that I know that they're like that, I'll program them, 7 days a week. I'll give them something to do every day. Like I have something for you 6 days a week now. Right. So I think it's understanding, who the individual is. But they got to decide what's sustainable for them. Ideally, get out there and work every day, and they got to work hard, man. Like you can't just show up and go through the motions. You got to work hard. That's going to separate, you from getting results and not getting results.
Well, that feels good. Like this morning I came back from working out, and it's just my whole shirt. I had a light gray shirt on, which is the best shirt to wear at the gym, because then by the time you're done, it's all dark gray, and you're like, cool, I did what I wanted to do, which is to sweat as much as I possibly could. And you just feel better when you do. Like, imagine coming back from the gym and you're not tired. Why did you even go to the gym? Why did you do that? Like you should have stayed at home and had some tea or coffee, and I don't know, like did some meditation or something. Like and tea and meditation is not inherently bad. I'm just saying, do that instead of going to the gym and doing nothing. That's what's wild to me. So my question though is, what if you don't know what you want? So guys listening to this, and a lot of trainers, and I'm not trying to knock you guys here at all when I say this, you're like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to burn fat? Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to be strong? I'm like, bro, I want all of that. Like, I know, but which is most important? All of it. I want to be strong, fit, look good naked, have little fat. Like, I want all of it. And I think guys that are listening are like, yeah, I don't know what specifically I'm training for. I just want to be in shape. I just want to be better. Are there some questions that you would have them ask themselves that would get them pointed in the right direction or on the right track of hitting their goals and objectives?
Yeah, I think like, you know, doing some vision work, some journaling, you know, what does the most effective version of themselves look like? I did the talk at the main event, and I titled it, you know, the ultimate man. You know, what does the ultimate version of Ryan Michler look like? You know, what's his body look like? What can he do? Like, what can that body perform? What skill sets does that body know how to engage in, right? So when I did this talk, I talked about, you know, the foundation of everything is strength. Like, you have to resistance train, whether it be, you know, with dumbbells, you know, barbells, kettlebells, you know, CrossFit, whatever, calisthenics. You have to put your body under load, and you have to strength train in some capacity. Then above and beyond that, I talked about resilience, whether it be, you know, endurance, activities over long periods of time. I talked about you know, skill sets as well. You know, this is a little bit different conversation, but you know, I'm a big I'm a big fan of guys being proficient in firearms and being able to be an asset in their community in terms of you know, medical care, right? You know, having basic trauma medicine skills and stuff like that. So, you know, what does this version of you look like, and then kind of go from there. But I think everyone should resistance train. So if they're not doing that, like, that's the best place to start.
Yeah. Well, I have one thing that I know that I'm going to be able to do, and that is I'm going to be able to do 6 days of your programming in one day.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I'm going to be able to do. So we'll see about that. There is another thing I want to address, and we don't talk about this a whole lot as men because we feel like it's not important or it's a non-issue, but I actually disagree. That I know some people, some men who they're fit, they're athletic, but they just look like little limp noodles. They're just scrawny and they're pasty, and they don't look like they could fight themselves out of a, you know, wet paper bag. Like, they just don't look good.
Mm.
And I think that there is an element of fitness that is important when it comes to your aesthetics,
Yes.
because it's going to make you more attractive
Mm-hmm.
to clients, to romantic interests. It's going to make you less attractive to shady characters, like you, for example. If I'm going to rob a convenience store and I see you walking in, or I see you at the counter, I'm probably going to choose a different time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, because I don't want to mess with you. Like, it's not worth it for me to mess with you, only because I see the way that you look.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
a
I'm not
deterrent.
saying it's a deterrent. Yes. I'm not saying that it's the most important thing, but to me, a man looks strong. He
Yes.
looks capable. He carries himself and his muscles well. He's not scrawny. He's not a limp noodle. I realize we all have different body types, but
Yeah.
building muscle is crucial for not only functionality, but also the aesthetic appeal and reasons, deterrence that we'd have those muscles.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that your body is going to be a function of your training, right? If you're not lifting weights, if you're this limp noodle type, right, it's going to be a reflection of what you're training in or not training in. And I'm a big proponent of what you said. An effective man is a strong man, and his body will reflect that. You know, your body, my body, other guys that work out, like, these are reflections of our habits and the things that we put our bodies through the weight training, through the martial arts training. Like, this body is a product of that. So when you see another guy with a commanding physical presence, you know what's beneath the layer.
Right.
You're like,
Right.
that guy, like, he works hard at whatever you're going to assume that he does, right? And doing martial arts, like, you know, like the jujitsu guys, they carry themselves a certain way, and you just know. And you look at somebody and, you know, they're muscular, like, I'm not gonna mess with that guy, right? If that was your intention, right? And growing up, I was this height, 6'2", but I was like 150 pounds, and I was real scrawny, and I would get picked on a lot. But man, as soon as I harnessed, getting into the gym and working through the pain of being uncomfortable and people like, at least my perception of them looking at me or making fun of me in the gym, just being this skinny kid with like 10-inch arms. Once I saw the results of building a more powerful and commanding physique, everything else is kind of aligned. Like I got more attention from women, right? And then I eventually met my beautiful and wonderful wife, Lauren. And the respect from men, and because they're like, man, like you got something figured out, and I want to talk to you about it because you've got something going on, and I want to know more about it. Everything else just clicked, and that boosted my confidence, and then I started training harder, and all of these things. It's this wonderful cycle, and it all started with me just building a more powerful and commanding physique.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people tend to believe that's like a vain pursuit, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It's the result of you
It's a great side effect.
doing other that's what it is. That's exactly right. It's not, the aesthetic is not the goal in and of itself. It's the
Mm-hmm.
benefit, it's the side effect, it's the inevitable outcome of discipline, sacrifice, commitment, dedication, all these other completely redeeming qualities and characteristics that we would, I think, would all agree we as men want to strive for.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I tell guys, it's like, if the aesthetic thing is their goal, it's like, be obsessed with the tactics that takes to get there, because the aesthetics are going to come. Get in there, like we've been talking about for this call. It's like, get in there, do the work, and the aesthetic piece it's going to come. Like, you're going to build a reflection of your habits. So get in there and do the work.
So here's one thing I've heard a lot is, I use the word working out and training interchangeably, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's a certain type of person who doesn't like that. Like, they don't work out. I don't work out. I train. It's like, okay, is this just semantics here and you just like the word train better? Or how would you differentiate the two? Because I don't care either way, because I'm
Yeah.
not riled up by what somebody else thinks of my workout sessions. But what is the difference from your perspective?
From my perspective, and I find myself using it more interchangeably than I would like, and especially more than some of my colleagues would like.
Yes, I bet.
But I think that workout is non-specific, like it lacks intention.
Mm.
And I think that what the industry likes about the word train, and what I personally like around the word train, is there's intentionality. It's like, I am working on this plan, on this thing that I set out to do, and there's intentionality behind it, and there's a goal. I'm not getting out there just to move. And depending upon who you are, depending upon what your goals are, I think that for the 300-pound guy that's sitting on the couch, that is listening to us right now and wondering what he should do, man, he just needs to work out. And if that's non-specific, with like not much intention other than like moving his body because he's not moving at all, then that's okay, right? But I think that for the vast majority of us, that we would benefit from this train ideology.
I like that. I'm going to say something that I know is going to offend people. Well, anything I say is going to offend somebody, so it's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
It seems like working out is, again, I use them interchangeably, but working out to me is more of a feminine approach
Okay.
than training, which is more masculine. So like, you'll see women who are like, yeah, I'm going to the gym. And what are you going to do? I'm going to go on the elliptical for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like no rhyme. That is good. Like, sure, do
It's
that.
exercise. It's not
Absolutely.
training. It's an exercise.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's just kind
Yeah.
of, I'm trying not to be too offensive. I don't mind offending, but I don't want to be
Well,
too
dude,
blatantly offensive.
I know a lot of women that train way harder than men, right? So
Agreed.
let's
Agreed.
put that out there, right?
But
But
that's
yeah, to your
different. But
point.
that's more of a direction oriented pursuit. Like your wife, she does bodybuilding, right?
Yeah, she does bodybuilding shows with me.
So that's training. Like
That's
it's
training. Yeah,
and to me
intention.
that's more of a masculine pursuit. It's purpose oriented. It's directional. It's I'm going this way. I'm doing this thing, and I'm working towards achieving this thing.
Yeah, those attributes are more masculine in nature for sure.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying a woman who possesses that can't be feminine. Of course, they're feminine at times,
Of course.
but yeah, I guess that's how I look at it. That makes sense to me. So, okay, I can't use workout anymore because it's feminine, I guess. So
You train, Ryan. You train with me. You
I
train.
I'm not really training for anything. Maybe I should, I have noticed that in the past, to go back to your question about why did lifting click for me, when I have a goal, then I notice myself being able to do it more effectively. So for example, if I know, like if I know a Spartan race is coming up, I'm going to train for that Spartan race. Or if I'm going to enter a jujitsu competition, which I haven't, and I want to, then I'm going to train. I'm going to actually have purpose and intentionality behind what I do leading up to that event. And then I'm not going to slack either, And then there's one other thing I thought about as to why it clicked for me this time around, or has so far, is I got into a transformation challenge with some buddies. I think there's 6 of us, and we all put in $200. Nice. And it's who has the biggest transformation. And I think it was a 90-day window that we did. So we have until, what did we? We chose Valentine's Day. I don't know why, but we chose on Valentine's Day, like whoever has the biggest transformation wins the pot, which is $1,200. So that might be part of it too. So
now I know, now we have to win. Not that like, not that I wasn't going to have you train hard anyway, but now we're going to really ramp up.
We have to win. We have to win. The area that, and we didn't even address, and maybe we can run this back another time, but the area we didn't talk about was nutrition.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I need the most work. I can go to the gym. Going to the gym's easy. I can work hard. That's easy. Put a pizza in front of me, I'm going to eat the entire pizza. Put Christmas and New Year's cookies in front of me, I'm going to eat all of them. Again, I don't dabble. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, nutrition is a huge component. Yeah, we could circle back on that another time if you want, but I think that the nutrition piece is going to be, again, like we talked about, highly correlated with their goals, right? If you want to lose fat, you have to focus on the nutrition. There's no way around it. You should always worry about your nutrition, obviously, but losing fat, if we're using the extreme example of like a bodybuilding show, it all comes down to nutrition. A little bit of cardio, right? Obviously, but it all comes down to nutrition. So it goes back to goals for sure.
I think where I need to focus the most is with the nutrition piece is better hydration. That's important because I don't drink a lot of water at all. Like I could go a day or two without having actual just water. So that's one. Portion sizes is a big one for me. And carbs, bread, pasta, chips, delicious. Sweets, it's not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker. It's like, if you put a pie in front of me, I'm like, it's not a big deal. But you put a loaf of bread in front of me or, fettuccine Alfredo, I'm eating all of it. So that's where I need to lock that in. Yeah. Yeah. Well, brother, tell the guys where to connect with you, learn a little bit more about what you're doing. Also, if you don't say it, I will say it. Obviously you do a great job. You're my trainer, and hopefully you can help. I know you can help me on the nutrition side if I just listen to you. But the other thing that I'll say is that you and I, we live generally close together, but we don't see each other. So this is all done online and remotely, which is important because you can have your gym, but you can have Johnny as a trainer who can help you regardless of where you are. But tell the guys where to connect with you.
Yeah, totally. So the best place to connect with me, on social media would be my personal Instagram is Johnny Loreti. My facility here in Boston, my brick and mortar business is Back Bay Fit. We have our own Instagram as well. And Ryan, you and I had the privilege of talking with you over the summer at the Origin Immersion Camp about, scaling my online business. And, starting in January, next week, I'm going to really ramp up my online component, which is a new brand called Valence, VALENCE. And that's where I'm going to kind of mitigate all of my online training to, just to kind of separate the brick and mortar, which is Back Bay Fit, from the online part. Because like you said, one of the beautiful things about the last couple of years, people not having as much access to gyms is the online component. And I was always doing online training, but now people are really into it, and I could connect with so many more people online. So, Johnny Loreti is the best place to find me directly, and my brick and mortar business, Back-Based Fit, and this Valence health consulting business is something I'm going to be launching. It's going to be fully integrated with DNA testing. We didn't talk about blood work, but I think that, guys, if you haven't gotten blood work done in the last year, get it done. See where you're at, get everything tested. We're going to have all that integrated with blood work and everything. So something I'm really excited about.
Awesome. Well, I know I'm personally looking forward to building this out even more. So appreciate everything you've done personally for me. And I know you're going to serve and help a lot of guys as we roll into 2023. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate you, brother.